Unaware his wife was the real owner of their condo, husband let his mistress throw her luggage out of their house. What she did next. Ruined them completely. He didn't just cheat. He opened the door of a condo he never paid for, let another woman wear his wife's robe, drink from his wife's mug, and then watched in silence as that woman dragged his wife's suitcase across the floor and pushed it toward her like she was trash being taken out. That evening, Anna Parker stood in the doorway of the home she bought long before she ever married him, staring at Emily, her husband's mistress, curled up on her couch. Daniel, her husband, stood between them, shirt half buttoned, guilt all over his face, but not enough to stop what happened next. Emily walked into the bedroom Anna decorated, opened the closet Anna filled, took the luggage Anna once used for work trips and dragged it out, the wheels screaming against the hardwood. She shoved it toward Anna and said, "Your husband said you don't stay here anyway." He thought he was throwing his wife out of his house. He thought she would walk away quietly, broken and powerless. He thought the keys on the table meant he had finally replaced her. What he never knew was this. The woman standing silently in that doorway wasn't walking away from her home. She was walking toward the truth that would legally strip him of everything inside it. While he and Emily laughed and planned their nights, Anna was the only name on the deed. The one with security footage, bank records, a watchful neighbor, and a lawyer who knew exactly what to do with all of it. This isn't just a story about adultery. It's about what happens when the person you humiliate in your own doorway is the only one the law recognizes as owner. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Anna's story be silenced after her suitcase hits the floor. Subscribe, like, and share your thoughts below, and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. The door slammed open with a sharp echo, the kind of sound that makes the air itself jump. Anna Parker, 28, quiet-faced, the kind of woman whose strength came wrapped in softness, stepped into the empty condo as if she had crossed into a new life. Her breath hitched, not from fear, but from the sudden rush of everything she had worked for. Sunlight poured across the bare living room floor, catching tiny dust particles that danced like sparks. For a moment, she simply stood there, gripping the small ring of keys so tightly her knuckles whitened. This condo wasn't just a space, it was proof. The silence dropped from intense to warm as she walked deeper inside, palms grazing the walls. Each touch held a meaning no one else knew. She wasn't just imagining furniture or decorations. She was imagining safety, her own future, her own freedom, the kind of stability she had learned to create for herself because the world had never handed her anything for free. Anna had grown up helping her father manage his rental homes. He was a calm, steady man who treated people with fairness, but never let kindness blind him. He often brought her to property viewings, showing her how to read people, how to notice the shift in their eyes when money came up, how to catch a lie hidden in a smile. She remembered those long evenings too clearly, the scent of old wood, the way he walked with a clipboard, the way he checked every window and lock before leaving, and how he always gave advice without pushing. People show their true nature when money's involved, he used to say while locking up after tenants. Protect yourself, sweetheart. Always keep something that is yours alone. Years passed. After he died, the funeral bills and leftover debts didn't care that she was grieving. Anna worked 2 jobs, daytime office assistant, evening cafe server, honoring everything he taught her. She saved every check, every tip, every spare bill. She skipped nights out, skipped new clothes, skipped anything that didn't move her closer to one goal. Until the day she walked into this condo, hers, the one she paid for entirely with her own discipline and a small inheritance that she refused to waste. She didn't do it to show off. She did it because she wanted a place where she could breathe without fear of losing it. That memory steadied her. She walked toward the small closet built into the hallway where she placed a fireproof box on the floor. It wasn't big, just large enough to hold the documents she had carried like a private shield. The deed, the insurance papers, copies of bank transfers, her father's final letter. On the lid in careful handwriting, she had written one simple word, private. Near the closet, a tiny security panel blinked softly. She'd paid extra to install cameras in the entryway and living room, a habit she'd picked up from her father, who always said, "Protect what you own. Don't just hope people will respect it." Her fingers hesitated before lowering the documents inside. A tiny ache pulled at her chest. He had only been gone a year when she bought the condo. Every signature she placed on every page felt like closing a chapter and opening another. When the lid clicked shut, she exhaled slowly and knelt to lock the box. The sound of metal turning was soft, but it carried weight, like she was sealing away not just papers, but a lifetime of lessons. She slid the box neatly to the back of the closet, where it sat low and hidden. She tested the key once more, then slipped it onto the same ring as her front door keys. Later in life, when things got more complicated, she would move the box to a safer storage unit. But that day, it stayed close, where she could reach it whenever she needed to remind herself who really owned this life. 4 years later, after steady dating and gentle encouragement, she invited Daniel to live with her. He was 30, charming when he wanted to be, well-dressed and ambitious. He came from a family where ease was mistaken for effort, so the condo seemed like a stroke of luck he didn't bother questioning. When he asked how she found the place, she smiled lightly and said, "I just got a good deal." He didn't ask further. He didn't notice the fireproof box. He didn't notice the way she kept certain documents locked away. He didn't see that the keys in her hand meant something far deeper than an address. Anna didn't mind his indifference then. She thought love made explanations unnecessary. Now, standing alone in the untouched condo before he ever moved in, she pressed the keys to her chest. She whispered to herself, "You built this. You earned this." Her father's voice seemed to echo behind the walls, steady and soft. "Protect yourself." As she snapped the final lock on the fireproof box, she had no idea how much she would need it. The box sat at her feet, silent but powerful. The security cameras blinked quietly in the corner, already recording a life she hadn't lived yet. A soft breeze slid through the open window, brushing her hair like a warning. She didn't sense it then, but small cracks in trust have a way of becoming earthquakes. The argument started with a crack in Daniel's voice, sharp, unexpected, and slicing through the room like broken glass. "I said I'll get to it, Anna. Stop nagging me!" The burst of anger was so sudden it stunned the air into silence. Anna froze near the kitchen counter, her hand still holding the stack of bills she'd been sorting. Her heart thumped hard, not from fear, but from confusion. Daniel Parker, her husband of 2 years, had never spoken that sharply before. He towered near the dining table, face flushed, phone gripped like a shield in his hand. And just like that, intensity dissolved. His shoulders dropped. His tone softened. "I'm just stressed," he muttered, rubbing his forehead. "Work is a lot right now." Anna nodded slowly, even though a small uneasiness tugged at her chest. She wanted to believe him. Daniel was 32 now, handsome in a clean, easy way, and often charming when he wanted to be. She remembered why she fell for him. His warmth, his laughter, his ability to make even simple evenings feel light. She placed the bills neatly on the table and forced a smile. "It's okay. I'll handle these. You focus on work." He didn't answer. He was already staring at the screen again, thumb moving over the glass like muscle memory. The shift from tension to quiet routine settled over the room. Anna moved around the condo with practiced ease, checking the light switch that flickered yesterday, responding to emails from the condo association, making a list for repairs. She handled the mortgage, utilities, and shared expenses, just like she always had. Daniel sent money sometimes, but it often came late or went toward his own personal spending first. This wasn't new. It had become their pattern. As she worked, memories threaded in. Daniel had grown up in a house where his mother did everything: cooking, cleaning, bills, planning, remembering. She moved through life quietly, never asking for help. His father, distant and proud, expected that service without question. Daniel absorbed that model without realizing it. When Anna married him, she stepped into a role he was already familiar with, even though she never agreed to it. At first, she accepted it because she loved him. She assumed marriage always needed adjustment. She told herself, "He's just tired. He's trying. He'll meet me halfway soon." But lately, the halfway point felt farther and farther away. She placed dinner on the table. Simple food, warm and carefully made. Daniel sat down, not looking at her, flipping his phone so the screen faced downward. A small detail, but one that didn't escape her eyes. He had never done that before. Not in the early days when he used to show her memes and funny messages. While they ate, she watched him from the corner of her gaze. His posture changed whenever the phone buzzed. His eyes lit up, then dimmed, as if he was trying not to show excitement. Her stomach tightened, but she forced a calm expression. She didn't want to accuse him. She didn't want to create a battle where she had no proof. When he finally did look at her, he smiled faintly. "How was your day?" It sounded polite, routine, empty. Like a question asked out of habit, not interest. She pushed past the ache and answered normally. "Busy, but fine." Their marriage looked calm on the outside, but something underneath was shifting, slow enough to ignore, deep enough to matter. Anna got up to wash dishes while Daniel remained at the table. The kitchen light reflected off the water as she rinsed plates, trying to steady the uncomfortable feeling crawling up her spine. She wasn't suspicious by nature. She believed in trust, and she believed in him. Still, there was something different in him lately, something hard to name and harder to ignore. As she placed the last plate on the rack, she turned to check on him. Daniel wasn't at the table anymore. He stood near the living room window, phone angled toward his chest. His thumbs moved quickly, almost nervously. He didn't notice her watching. The phone buzzed again. He glanced around, once, twice, then smiled at the screen. A soft, secret smile she hadn't seen directed at her in months. When she stepped closer, he instantly locked the phone and slid it into his pocket. "Oh, you're done with the dishes?" he said lightly. Too lightly. Anna didn't ask anything. She just nodded. A small crack formed in her chest, but she pretended not to notice. She had learned long ago that sometimes silence was safer than accusations. Later that night, while Daniel showered, she found his phone face down on the nightstand once again. She reached toward it instinctively, then withdrew her hand. Her father's old words drifted back to her. People show their nature slowly, like a shadow stretching across the floor. Daniel came out of the bathroom smiling as if nothing had happened. But when the phone buzzed again, he turned away from her, shielding the screen. His small laugh, soft, secretive, echoed across the bedroom. Anna felt it like a closing door. She didn't know who he was texting. She didn't know why he hid it. She didn't know when the distance began. But something told her the answers were coming, and she might not like what she found. And while she tried to sleep, a strange thought whispered at the edge of her mind. Tomorrow would bring signs she could no longer ignore. The scream of the washing machine's metal drum hitting something hard snapped through the laundry room like a fault line breaking open. Anna jerked her head up instantly. The noise wasn't normal, sharp, intrusive, warning. She paused the cycle, opened the lid, and reached inside to fix whatever had caused the chaos. Her fingers touched something small, smooth, out of place. When she pulled it out, the world seemed to tilt. A lipstick, bright red. A shade she never owned, never wore, never even considered buying. The intensity of the discovery hit her chest first. Fast, loud, impossible to ignore. Her breath caught as she stared at the tube resting in her palm. For a moment, she didn't even blink. Her mind raced through every reasonable explanation, but none fit cleanly. None soothed the sudden cold settling under her ribs. She glanced at the open laundry basket beside her. It was the load she had started the night before. Mostly Daniel's shirts, his work pants, and the jeans he wore 2 days in a row. She hadn't washed anyone else's clothes. No guests, no visiting relatives. Just theirs. She turned the lipstick slowly. The cap was slightly cracked at the top, as if it had been crushed inside a pocket or squeezed in someone's hand. Anna didn't wear red. She didn't like bold colors, and she had washed Daniel's clothes last night. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears as the scene's intensity softened into something quieter, something more painful. She placed the lipstick on the edge of the washing machine and stood still, letting the room settle around her. Her father's voice drifted from a long-buried memory. People lie fast when they've rehearsed. Listen for the speed, sweetheart. Lies always rush. Truth takes its time. She closed her eyes. Memories surfaced. Daniel smiling at his phone. Daniel flipping his screen down during dinner. Daniel stepping away whenever his phone buzzed. None of those were proof, but they were cracks that didn't heal. When Daniel entered the laundry room minutes later, she turned toward him slowly, holding the lipstick between her fingers. He blinked in surprise. Just for a split second, one tiny moment where his face slipped out of control, his eyes widened. Then he smiled, too easily. "Oh, that? It's probably from work. My coworkers were messing around yesterday." His words came out fast. Too fast. Exactly as her father had described. "Really?" she asked softly. He nodded immediately. "Yeah, just a prank. You know how people at work are." Another quick laugh. "One of the girls must have dropped it in my jacket pocket as a joke." He added the last sentence too quickly, as if realizing he needed more detail. She didn't argue. She didn't accuse. She didn't even frown. But as Daniel walked away, relief too quick and too shallow in his steps, Anna felt a dull ache forming inside her chest. Not from anger, she wasn't there yet, but from the quiet shift happening between them. Something unseen was growing. Something unwanted. The washing machine hummed again, but Anna stayed frozen in place, staring at the lipstick on the machine. The color glowed under the overhead light, bold and loud against the soft whites and neutrals of their home. It didn't belong here. It didn't belong to her. And something deep inside whispered, it belonged to someone. She picked it up again, turning it over with slow, careful fingers. The more she stared, the stronger her intuition pressed against her ribs. She wasn't imagining things. She wasn't being dramatic. She wasn't being jealous. This was a sign, a warning, a truth trying to reach her. She walked into the bedroom with the lipstick and opened the drawer of her nightstand. The soft scrape of wood sliding open felt unnaturally loud. Without hesitation, she placed the lipstick carefully inside, next to her phone charger and her folded notebook. Not in the trash, not hidden someplace random, stored, as if she already knew she would need it again. Anna closed the drawer slowly. A quiet determination settled over her, something she didn't fully understand yet. She had no idea then that this small item, this red shade she never wore, would one day return with answers she wasn't prepared for. Tomorrow would bring something far louder than a forgotten lipstick. The suitcase hit the floor with a heavy thud, louder than it should have been, loud enough to make Anna's heart jump. She wasn't usually clumsy, but her hands shook slightly as she zipped the bag shut. The intensity of the morning pressed down on her chest like a storm she couldn't name. She was preparing for a 2-day training retreat for work, something her manager insisted she attend. It was mandatory. She couldn't skip it without a serious reason. Daniel stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her pack. "You'll be back by Friday night?" he asked. "Yes," she answered softly. "It's just 2 days. I'll be back before dinner." He nodded, but there was something off, something too calm, too eager in his tone. She couldn't place it, but the feeling lingered like a cold shadow behind her. She took a slow breath, letting the intensity sink into quiet reflection as she folded her last blouse and set it inside the suitcase. She wasn't suspicious by nature, and she wanted to believe everything between them could still settle, still return to the easy warmth they once had. Even though cracks were forming, she wasn't ready to assume the worst. Daniel walked closer and kissed her cheek gently. It felt familiar, but not full. "Drive safe," he murmured. Anna smiled faintly. "I will." They walked together to the door, and she grabbed her keys. A small tremor ran through her hand again. Nerves from the retreat, she told herself. Just nerves. The moment she stepped into the hallway and the door closed behind her, something in the apartment shifted. The camera of life stayed inside. Daniel's shoulders dropped in relief, his posture loosening like a man released from a performance. He pulled out his phone with a speed that didn't belong to a faithful husband. He dialed. The line barely rang once before someone answered. His voice lowered, excited, quick, stripped of the caution he used around Anna. "She's gone," he said. "Come tonight." He didn't smile. He grinned. Daniel then walked through the condo, moving fast, as if he had to erase any trace of Anna's presence. He straightened the cushions she touched that morning, wiped the dining table she cleaned, sprayed cologne into the air like he wanted to replace her scent. He even checked his reflection twice, smoothing his hair back. Nothing about his actions belonged to a man waiting for a quiet night alone. They belonged to a man preparing to welcome someone he knew he shouldn't. In the suitcase she carried, Anna arranged her documents neatly while waiting for her rideshare. She didn't know what was happening inside the condo. She didn't know Daniel was already rushing to make the home look single for the evening. She didn't know that the cracks she tried to ignore were widening faster than she imagined. Her drive to the retreat was quiet. The tension inside her softened as she watched fields and streetlights pass by through the window. She tried to focus on work, on the training sessions ahead, on her plans for the condo. She loved that home. She believed in it. She believed in them. During the first session, her mind drifted back to Daniel's strange calmness that morning, but she pushed the thought away. She needed to concentrate, to take notes, to show her manager she was serious. When the afternoon break came, she stepped outside for air. She texted Daniel once, made it safe, and got a short reply. Good. The word felt cold, but she ignored it. Evening came. The group gathered in the dining hall. Anna chatted politely with coworkers, trying to shake off the uneasiness. She sat with two women from another department, asking about their projects, forcing herself to stay engaged. Then her phone buzzed against the table. A single message. From her neighbor, Mrs. Phillips, a retired woman who lived across the hall. Months earlier, Anna had helped her after a small fall in the lobby, and they had exchanged numbers, just in case. Mrs. Phillips was sharp, observant, the kind of person who noticed everything from broken light bulbs to new faces in the building. Anna opened the message. 4 words froze her blood. Your husband's not alone tonight. Her breath caught, her fork stilled, the room around her blurred. Her fingers tightened around the phone. She felt the ground of denial finally shift under her feet. She excused herself from the table, voice barely steady. Somewhere between the dining hall and the exit, one thought settled inside her like ice. This night would not end the way she expected. The front door flew open so hard it hit the wall, the violent echo ripping through the condo like a lightning strike. Anna stepped inside, breath sharp and unsteady, her heart pounding from the drive she had made far faster than she should have. She had told her supervisor there was a family emergency, grabbed her suitcase, and left the retreat as soon as she could sign out. The intensity of fear, doubt, and anger mixed inside her like fire. She didn't call Daniel. She didn't warn him. She needed to see the truth with her own eyes. She walked into her own home, her sanctuary, only for her feet to stop cold. There, sitting casually on her couch, in her robe, was a woman with long brown hair tied up in a loose bun. The woman crossed her legs, drinking from Anna's favorite mug, the one with the faded blue pattern. Emily Hart, 27, a co-worker from Daniel's office. Always too friendly, always too present. Anna had met her twice at company events. Emily had introduced herself with a bright smile and the words, "Daniel talks about you all the time." Something about her tone had made Anna uneasy then, but she had dismissed it as her own insecurity. Now Emily didn't bother smiling. She lifted her eyebrows, calm and bold in another woman's home. "Oh, you're back?" Anna froze. Every muscle in her body tightened. Her eyes moved slowly, painfully slowly, to her husband. Daniel stood near the dining table, shirt half buttoned, hair messy, guilt spreading across his face like a stain. He swallowed hard. "Anna, why are you back?" he stammered, voice cracking. His question stabbed deeper than any explanation could. It wasn't shock from being caught. It was shock from being caught too early. Anna didn't speak. She didn't move. She just stared, quiet, still, unreadable. Emily didn't bother hiding her satisfaction. In her mind, Daniel had told her enough lies to make her believe she belonged here. Enough lies to make her think Anna was hardly around, hardly involved, hardly a wife. Emily stood up slowly, the robe shifting around her body, revealing she was wearing nothing underneath. She stretched her arms lazily, as if she owned the space. "You know," Emily said with a small smirk, "Daniel said you're barely home. I didn't think you'd mind." Anna's breath shook, once, but her face remained controlled. Daniel stepped forward, panic rising. "Anna, it's not, this isn't—" He couldn't even form a sentence. His eyes darted between the two women, searching for words that didn't exist. Emily rolled her eyes, dismissive. Don't make this dramatic, Daniel. You said she wouldn't be back until tomorrow night. I packed light for a reason. That sentence carved the final mark across Anna's heart. Emily moved toward the bedroom, walking confidently through Anna's home, like she had every right to. A minute later, the wheels of Anna's luggage screeched against the hardwood floor, loud, rude, humiliating. Emily dragged the suitcase carelessly, the wheels rattling, bumping against the walls Anna had chosen paint colors for. She pulled it across the living room and stopped inches from Anna. She pushed the luggage forward with the tip of her foot. Your husband said you don't stay here anyway, Emily said, voice dripping with triumph. Daniel didn't stop her. He didn't reach for Anna. He didn't step between them. He just stood there, shame pressing into his shoulders, silence swallowing the space around him. His silence agreed with Emily more loudly than any words. Anna looked at the suitcase, then at Emily, then at Daniel. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't crumble. She whispered one single word, calm and razor sharp. Noted. The quiet of it sliced deeper than shouting ever could. She bent down, lifted the suitcase handle, and slowly straightened. Her movements were smooth, controlled, almost elegant. Then she did something unexpected. She walked to the dining table, placed her house keys on the wooden surface, and tapped them once with her fingertip. The same keys Daniel had always assumed meant their home, even though he never asked whose name was on the deed. Daniel frowned, confusion flickering through his panic. Anna, why did you? But she was already turning away. She walked out of the condo without looking back. The door clicked shut behind her, soft but final. Outside, the cool air hit her skin, clearing her thoughts with chilling focus. Betrayal had broken something inside her, but not the way Daniel expected. It didn't make her desperate. It made her sharp. She looked at the keys one last time through the glass window beside the door. Left behind, on purpose. Because what Daniel didn't know was that she didn't need keys to reclaim what was hers. Something cold settled in her chest. Something patient, calculating. Something that would soon turn her silence into power. And far inside the home she built, a storm was forming that Daniel and Emily could never see coming. The moment Anna reached her car, the door slammed shut with a force that shook the entire frame. A violent burst of emotion she didn't let out anywhere else. Her breath rushed out fast and sharp, fogging the windshield. The inside of the car felt too small, too tight, too crowded with everything she had just seen. Her hands trembled as they gripped the steering wheel. The intensity of betrayal pulsed through her in waves, each one hot and suffocating. She could still picture Emily in her robe. She could still hear the screech of her own suitcase being dragged across the floor she once hoped would hold a future. For a few seconds, she could barely breathe. But then, slowly, her breathing steadied. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't fall apart. Instead, the fire inside her cooled, dropping into something cold and still. A quietness formed inside her chest, heavy but controlled. She leaned back in the driver's seat, eyes closing softly, letting that cold, steady feeling settle. Her father's voice slipped through memory like a hand reaching out of the past. Never fight in anger. Fight in clarity. He had said it on the porch of one of his old rental houses after a tenant screamed over a late fee. At the time, she was a teenager, angry on his behalf, ready to shout back. He stopped her with a hand on her shoulder. Clarity holds power. Anger only burns the holder, he had added. Anna inhaled deeply, letting those words guide her. When she opened her eyes again, the storm inside her was gone. What remained was something sharper. She reached across the console and opened the glove compartment with calm fingers. Inside, tucked beneath papers and old receipts, was a small silver key, the key to her fireproof storage box. Years ago, after she married Daniel and he moved in, she had decided not to keep her most important documents in the condo anymore. She rented a small storage unit and moved the box there, telling herself it was just for extra safety. Now that choice felt like foresight. She held the key between her fingers for a long moment. The metal was cool, grounding, steady, everything she wanted to be. Without hesitation, she started the engine and drove. The road ahead was dark and quiet, streetlights casting long, faint shadows over the pavement. Anna didn't race. She didn't shake. She drove with a calm so controlled it felt unnatural, even to herself. When she reached the storage facility, she parked and stepped out into the cool night air. The silence around her felt almost protective. She walked down the concrete hallway to Unit 14, a small steel door she hadn't opened in months. She unlocked it, slid the door up, and stepped inside. Against the back wall on a low shelf sat the fireproof box, exactly where she had left it years ago when life still felt stable. She knelt, slid the silver key into the lock, and twisted it. The soft click echoed in the empty unit. Inside the box lay the truths she never shared. The condo deed in her name, only premarital financial documents, showing she bought it long before Daniel bank records, showing she paid every mortgage payment herself. A handwritten note from her father. She unfolded the note gently. "Protect your peace." The letters were slanted, written in his familiar patient hand. Her throat tightened, but no tears came. This wasn't sadness, it was resolve. Anna took out the deed, smoothing it with her palms. Her fingers didn't shake. Her breath didn't falter. Everything Daniel believed he controlled was actually hers. She pulled out her phone, the glow of the screen lighting her face in the dim space. She held the deed close and snapped a clear picture. Then another. Then she turned the pages of the bank statements and did the same. She knew lawyers would need originals later, but for tonight, he needed to see enough to understand. Then she tapped to send the images. The recipient appeared on the screen. Attorney Morris, a calm, strategic man in his 40s. Trusted, sharp. He had handled her father's estate and told her years ago, "If you ever need help, call me." She pressed send. The message delivered instantly. Anna closed the box, locked it, and slid it back onto the shelf. The important papers were still safe there, but now the evidence lived in more than one place. Her calm now held a different weight, like a blade sharpened with purpose. As she walked back to her car, her phone buzzed once. A message from Attorney Morris lit the screen. She opened it. His reply held only 4 words. "I'm ready when you are." A low, cold certainty settled inside her, and in the shadows of her storage unit, a new beginning stirred. Quiet, patient, and already reaching for justice. The door to the condo swung open with a violent crack against the wall, loud enough to announce that whatever softness used to live here had been replaced with something colder. Anna stepped inside with a speed and force as she had never carried before. Her eyes scanned the living room like someone tracking an enemy, not a home. Every object, every shadow, every memory felt different now. Daniel was at work. Emily was long gone. And Anna wasn't here to grieve. She was here to gather every truth they thought she would never see. She locked the door behind her, using a small spare key she had never mentioned to Daniel. The extra copy she kept for herself in a separate place, just like her father taught her. Always keep something that is yours alone. As the intense energy faded into a cold, controlled breath, she moved quietly through the entryway. Her pain shifted into precision. Her heartbreak sharpened into strategy. The condo smelled like Emily's perfume, a sweet floral scent that didn't belong in this house. Anna didn't flinch. She walked through it like a ghost returning to reclaim her space. Her first stop was the small security panel near the hallway. She had installed cameras when she first bought the condo, a habit she picked up from her father, who always believed in protecting what you owned. She tapped in her passcode and clicked through the saved recordings, each file waiting like a hidden witness. There it was. Timestamps, door openings, Emily entering, Emily leaving, Daniel welcoming her, holding the door wide like a host. Anna plugged in a small flash drive she had brought with her and downloaded everything. Her movements calm and steady, the tiny progress bar filled as if it were weighing out justice. Next, she walked to the bedroom. Emily's robe was still thrown across the bed, her perfume heavy on the fabric. Anna didn't touch it with bare hands. She slipped it into a plastic bag she brought with her, sealing the top carefully. Then she moved to Daniel's nightstand. His calendar lay open. She glanced over the scribbled notes until her eyes froze on one line. E comes over 7 p.m. Same date as the business trip that wasn't. She took a photo with her phone, ensuring the date and time were clear. From there, she walked to Daniel's small office nook, cluttered, full of receipts he forgot she knew how to organize. His tablet lay on the desk. When she opened it, the banking app was already signed in. Months earlier, They had used it together to look over shared expenses and file taxes. He had never bothered logging out. The arrogance made her hand steady. Transfers popped across the screen. Small ones, large ones, regular ones, all sent to a name she now recognized. Emily Hart. She took screenshots of each transfer, backing them up in her email and cloud storage. No single copy, no single device, no single point of failure. The condo was quiet except for the soft clicking of her phone's camera. She wasn't angry. She wasn't panicked. She wasn't lost. She was collecting proof. Anna walked to her own nightstand and opened the drawer. The lipstick, bright red, lay exactly where she left it. It sat like a truth she had been holding long before she even knew why. She picked it up gently. The top was cracked, tiny fingerprints along the side. She slid it into another plastic bag, pressing the seal closed. DNA, scent, fingerprints, all silent, all powerful. On her way out, she stopped by the neighbor's door. Mrs. Phillips opened it before Anna even knocked, as if she had been waiting, worry already in her eyes. "Anna, sweetheart, I didn't want to upset you," the older woman said softly, concern etched across her face. "You didn't upset me," Anna replied quietly. "I just need to know what you saw, in your own words. The night you texted me." Mrs. Phillips invited her in and explained everything. When Daniel opened the door for Emily, how Emily arrived with an overnight bag, how they laughed on the balcony, glasses in hand, like a couple in a movie. She spoke slowly, carefully, as if each word weighed something heavy. Anna listened without visible emotion, only asking short, clear questions when needed. At the end, she gently asked, "Would you be willing to repeat this if a lawyer needs to hear it?" Mrs. Phillips nodded with sad certainty. "If it helps you, yes." Anna thanked her and returned to her condo. Inside, she placed all the collected evidence in her bag, zipped it shut, and stood in the center of the quiet living room, the same room where Emily sat in her robe just the night before. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She answered. Attorney Morris's voice came through the speaker, steady, deep, familiar. "Anna," he said, "I've reviewed what you sent, and this is more than enough to start." Her heartbeat slowed, not quickened. Then his next words landed like a match on gasoline. "Anna, are you ready for this?" She didn't know it yet, but the moment she said yes would mark the beginning of the end. For Daniel, for Emily, and for everything they thought they controlled. The first bang shook the entire hallway, so hard, so violent, it rattled the picture frames inside the condo. "Anna, open the door!" Daniel's voice thundered through the metal, every slam louder than the one before. His fist pounded as if he could break the truth with his hands. It had been days since she gathered the evidence. In that time, things moved quietly but quickly. Consultations with Attorney Morris, paperwork filed, a temporary order granting her exclusive occupancy as sole owner, lock changes done through building management, and a formal notice prepared to be posted. The intensity of Daniel's rage now cut through the quiet condo like a blade. Attorney Morris, standing calmly behind Anna, didn't flinch. He had seen outbursts like this before. Rage was the weapon of men who thought the world belonged to them. Anna did not move toward the door. She didn't shrink. She didn't shake. She stood steady, face calm, holding the documents that would end everything Daniel thought he owned. Outside, Daniel kept yelling, "Why did you change the locks? Let me in. This is my home." His words hit the door with the same force as his hands, but taped to the front of that door, bright, bold, and legally backed by her ownership and the temporary order, was the notice he never expected to see in his lifetime. Notice to vacate non-owner occupant must leave registered owner. Anna Parker. He had read it 3 times already. Each time his disbelief grew bigger, louder, uglier. "What do you mean, owner?" he shouted again, as if yelling the word would make it less true. "This is my home. We pay for this." "Anna." Inside, Anna breathed slowly, letting her heartbeat settle into the cold calm she had learned from her father. Never fight in anger. Fight in clarity. Attorney Morris gave her a small nod. "It's time," he said quietly. She unhooked the security chain and opened the door only 3 inches, just enough to look Daniel in the face. He stopped pounding instantly. Shock froze him. Anna wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She wasn't hurt. She looked at him the way someone looks at a problem that has already been solved. Anna, he breathed, voice cracking. What? What is this? Why did you do this? Why are the locks? It's simple, she said, her tone smooth as glass. This condo isn't yours. It never was. For a moment, Daniel didn't understand. His face twisted, confused, desperate. He stammered. But I thought you assumed, she corrected softly. You never asked. Behind her, Attorney Morris stepped into view. His presence made Daniel's face go pale. Morris, why are you here? Daniel demanded, voice trembling. Representing my client, the attorney replied. Your wife. Daniel blinked as if dragged underwater. My wife? He repeated. You remember her, Morris said calmly. The woman who owns this property. Daniel shook his head violently. No, she would have told me. Anna, tell him he's lying. Tell him. Anna simply reached through the small opening and handed him the manila envelope she had been holding. Daniel stared at it like it was a weapon. What is this? Divorce papers, she said. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Daniel's chest heaved. Anna. Wait. No, we can talk. Just open the door. Let me in. Let me explain. Her voice stayed steady. You had plenty of nights to talk. You used them with someone else. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Emily's name hovered in his throat like poison he couldn't swallow. He gripped the doorframe. You can't do this to me, he whispered, voice shaking now. She looked at him with calm, heartbreaking finality. Daniel, I already did. It hit him harder than any door could. He stepped back, the reality sinking in. Locks changed, legal notice on the door, divorce papers in his hand, attorney present, and the cold truth that everything he enjoyed in this condo came from a woman he betrayed. His breathing turned ragged. Anna, please. But she closed the door gently, the security chain sliding back into place with a metallic click that sounded like a verdict. On the other side of the door, Anna exhaled slowly. Her decision was made. Her future was already moving forward. But Daniel wasn't done. He wasn't going to walk away quietly. And something inside her warned. Tomorrow his desperation would turn into something far more dangerous. The gavel slammed down so hard the entire courtroom jumped. Order! The judge barked, voice booming across the walls. Weeks had passed since the notice on the condo door. Enough time for paperwork to be filed, responses submitted, and today's hearing scheduled. Time Daniel spent convincing himself he could still talk his way out. Now sitting at the respondent's table, he flinched as if struck. His face went pale, panic flooding his eyes. The sudden burst of intensity silenced every whisper in the room, freezing even the air. Anna sat calmly at her table beside Attorney Morris, hands folded neatly, expression steady and unreadable. This wasn't a fight anymore. This was judgment. As the tension slowly eased into a focused quiet, the judge gestured toward Anna's side. Mrs. Parker, he said, you may continue presenting your evidence. Anna rose. Her movements were slow, precise, and controlled, nothing like the frantic energy Daniel had shown all morning. She walked to the center with the confidence of someone who carried truth, not excuses. She handed the judge a flash drive. This is the security footage, she said softly, from inside the condo. The video played on the courtroom screen. Emily entering, Emily leaving, Daniel welcoming her with a smile, laughing together, kissing, drinking wine on the balcony while Anna was away on her work retreat. Daniel covered his face with shaking hands. Next, Anna handed over printed screenshots. These are messages between Daniel and Emily, she continued. He referred to our home as his place and told her I'm barely there. He invited her regularly. The screen showed lines of text. She's gone for the retreat, come tonight. And you'll love the view from my place. Then another set. Bank transfers, dates, amounts, all leading to Emily Hart. The courtroom murmured. People shifted. The truth pressed harder with every page. Finally, Anna placed one last document before the judge. The condo deed, her name on it alone. Judge Whitman adjusted his glasses, brows lifting slightly. Premarital purchase, he confirmed. Sole ownership by Mrs. Parker, with records showing she paid the mortgage alone. Daniel's voice cracked. But she never told me. I thought it was ours. I thought... You assumed, the judge said sharply. Assumption is not ownership. The courtroom fell silent again. Then came Emily's turn. She stood slowly, trying to maintain her usual confidence. She looked around with a shaky smile. Your Honor, I didn't know he was happily married. He told me he was unhappy. He said she was never home. Anna's head tilted slightly. Calm, cold. Attorney Morris raised a brow. The judge cut Emily off. Ms. Hart, the messages show you were aware he was married and that his wife lived in that condo. You agreed to come when she was gone. Emily froze. The screen replayed messages. When is your wife out? Tomorrow. She's at a retreat. You can stay over. Emily swallowed hard, scrambling. I can explain. But each explanation tangled her deeper. Each attempt to defend Daniel exposed more lies. Each sentence tightened the noose around their shared deception. By the time she sat down, even she looked like she regretted showing up at all. The judge leaned back, exhaling with finality. Given the evidence of adultery, financial misconduct, and the fact that the home belongs solely to Mrs. Parker, he paused, letting the weight settle. I rule as follows. The condo remains the sole property of Mrs. Anna Parker. Mr. Daniel Parker must vacate immediately and has no claim to the equity of the property. Mr. Parker is ordered to pay spousal support due to marital misconduct and the financial imbalance created during the marriage. Daniel's mouth fell open. Wait, no. Your Honor, please. This will ruin me. Can't we negotiate something? The judge looked at him with stern disappointment. Actions have consequences, Mr. Parker. Court dismissed. The gavel fell again. This time it sounded like the end of a life Daniel once took for granted. Outside the courthouse, the world moved around Daniel as if he didn't exist. His phone buzzed nonstop, emails from work, notifications, and then one devastating message from HR. We are initiating suspension pending investigation regarding conduct violations. Report to HR immediately. Word had spread. Screenshots don't stay private. Someone from the office had seen or received the messages, and soon they reached the company. A married man using business trips and work time to host an affair in what he called his condo did not look good on their records. He was collapsing faster than he could breathe. Emily approached him hesitantly. Well, this is getting messy, she muttered. Maybe we need space. Daniel grabbed her arm. Emily, please, don't leave me too. But she pulled away. I didn't sign up for a broke man with nowhere to stay, she said bluntly. I have my own life to think about. And then she walked off without a backward glance. Daniel stood alone, truly alone. He pulled out his phone, dialing the only number he could think of, the only person who might still have a shard of mercy left. Anna. The phone rang in his trembling hand. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. His breath held. Would she answer? He didn't know it yet, but silence can be more painful than any spoken word. The knock hit the front door so suddenly and so hard that the vase on the entry table trembled. The sound echoed through the condo like the last desperate cry of a man losing everything. Anna froze mid-step, fresh flowers still in her hand. Days had passed since the court ruling. Daniel had been ordered to vacate. The locks remained changed. The condo was legally, practically, and peacefully hers again. Her breath steadied as she turned slowly toward the noise. Another knock, louder this time. Anna, open the door. Daniel's voice cracked with fear, humiliation, and something close to panic. The intensity wrapped around the air, thick and trembling. But unlike before, it didn't shake Anna. It didn't break her. It didn't even unsettle the calm she carried now, like armor. She didn't move toward the door. She didn't answer. She simply inhaled, long and slow, letting the sharpness fade into quiet. This was no longer her fight. The storm had passed, and she had survived it all. She walked away from the door, her pace unhurried, her steps confident. She reached the kitchen counter and placed the vase down gently. The fresh flowers, soft whites and pale greens, were ones she used to buy to brighten the home when she hoped for better days. But now they felt different, not reminders of the past, symbols of something new. She arranged them carefully, taking her time. Her hands moved with purpose, not urgency. She was no longer living in a space of fear or betrayal. She was standing in her own home, the one she bought long before Daniel, the one that held every memory of her father's teachings, her sacrifices, and her strength. Outside the door, Daniel knocked again, this time weaker, breaking. "Please, Anna, please talk to me." His voice had lost all its harshness. It was small, fragile, almost unrecognizable. But Anna did not flinch. She was done giving pieces of herself to someone who treated her like an afterthought. She walked into the bedroom, sunlight falling across the neatly made bed. She ran her hand along the edge of the nightstand, remembering the nights she stayed awake, wondering why Daniel felt so distant, wondering what she had done wrong. Now she knew the truth. She had done nothing wrong. She had simply loved the wrong person. She opened the drawer and pulled out a fireproof box. After the hearing, she had gone back to her storage unit, brought the box home, and set it where it always should have been, in the place that was fully and openly hers. The same box that once held secrets, fear, and unanswered questions. The same box she once hid because she thought protecting Daniel's comfort was more important than protecting herself. Not anymore. She carried the box to the center of the living room and set it down. The metal lid glimmered under the afternoon light. Slowly, she knelt, unlocked it, and lifted the top. Inside were the documents that changed everything. The condo deed, premarital financial statements, screenshots and printed proofs used in court, and her father's handwritten note, "Protect your peace." She touched the note with gentle fingertips. Her father had been right all along. Her phone buzzed suddenly, vibrating against the hardwood floor. The sharp sound broke the stillness. She looked over and saw Daniel's name flashing across the screen. For a moment, she just stared at it. The call continued. The phone kept vibrating. The entire condo seemed to hum with the sound. Daniel was still outside, still calling, still begging. Anna picked up the phone, held it in her palm, and exhaled slowly. Not in anger, not in sadness, just in release. The phone kept buzzing, and she let it ring. Her voice, steady and quiet, filled the space inside her mind. "I didn't destroy him out of anger. I protected myself with truth, and sometimes truth is the sharpest revenge." The call faded. The screen went dark. The silence returned. Anna folded her father's note and placed it back inside the fireproof box. Not because she still needed to hide something, but because she was finally closing the chapter it belonged to. She shut the lid, locked it, stood up. Her shoulders relaxed, her chest lifted, and the weight of years fell away with one breath. She walked toward the balcony and opened the sliding door, letting warm air wash over her face. The view looked different now, wider, calmer, new. Behind her, the fireproof box sat closed, no longer a symbol of protection, but completion. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video. The room went dead silent as Ethan Morgan slammed his napkin on the mahogany table during family dinner. "You think sitting in that wheelchair makes you special?" he sneered. "You're nothing but dead weight, Grace," a broken woman clinging to my name. Under the glow of the chandelier, Grace's hands trembled against the table edge. Her mother-in-law smirked. The Mistress Harper twirled her wine glass and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "Maybe he should trade you in for someone who can actually walk." Guests gasped. Ethan pulled an envelope from his jacket and dropped it beside her plate. "Happy dinner," he said coldly. "Divorce papers. Sign them before dessert." Grace didn't cry. Her other hand rested protectively over her small, pregnant belly as she steadied her breath. She only looked up, her calm eyes meeting his. And for a flicker of a second, just one Ethan looked afraid. Because what no one knew, not the mistress, not the family, not even Ethan himself, was that the woman he just humiliated, pregnant, disabled, and quietly powerful, owned the very company that kept them all rich. So what happens when the woman they call worthless decides to remind them who really holds the power? This is the story of how a husband divorced his disabled and pregnant wife at a family dinner, and she canceled their $950 million deal. Hello family, welcome back. Before we begin, please click subscribe. Every single click helps us tell stories of courage and truth. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. Because when we share these stories together, we remind each other that even in pain, we can rise. The crystal glass shattered before anyone could blink. Enough! Ethan Morgan's voice boomed through the dining hall, echoing off the marble walls. I'm done, pretending this marriage isn't over. The long mahogany table trembled under his hand. Under the chandelier's golden light, Grace Morgan, his wife, sat frozen in her wheelchair. Her left hand instinctively moved to her stomach 3 months pregnant, as though protecting the tiny life growing inside her. The chatter died instantly. Ethan, please, she said softly, her voice barely audible. Not here, not in front of everyone. His mother, Victoria Morgan, smirked from across the table, her pearls gleaming like little trophies. He's right, dear. This family can't afford pity anymore. And then came the laugh, sharp, cruel, deliberate. Harper Steele, the mistress, leaned back in her crimson dress, swirling her wine. Oh, Grace, she said sweetly. He deserves someone who can stand beside him, not someone who rolls in behind. The words sliced the air like knives. Guests exchanged nervous glances, but no one spoke. Grace's fingers trembled on the wheelchair armrest. The smell of roasted lamb and wine suddenly felt suffocating. Ethan reached into his suit pocket, pulled out a white envelope, and tossed it onto her plate. Happy dinner, he sneered. Divorce papers. Sign them before dessert. Gasp spread through the room. Victoria smiled faintly, proud of her son's cruelty. Lily Parker, Grace's childhood friend and only ally, sat 2 chairs away, her face pale. Ethan, this is disgusting. She's pregnant. Exactly, he interrupted, and I refuse to raise another weak generation. Grace's eyes filled but didn't break. She looked at him for a long moment, the man who once held her hand through hospital nights now looking at her like a stranger. Then, slowly, she picked up her napkin, folded it neatly, and placed it on the table. Her voice was calm, but the weight of it silenced the room. You know, Ethan, she said, you've always confused silence for weakness. Maybe that's why you never saw how loud truth can be. He scoffed. You talk like you have power. Her gaze sharpened. No, Ethan, I have something better memory. For a moment, his expression faltered. Then, from under her sleeve, a thin gold chain glimmered, a small key hanging from it, catching the chandelier's light. Her late father's key. No one else noticed it, but Lily did. Grace took a deep breath, her hand still resting protectively on her belly. You've made your choice tonight, but remember this moment, she said softly, because when everything falls apart, this is where it started. The hall was so quiet that even the clink of her fork sounded like thunder. Ethan rolled his eyes. You're delusional. But for the first time in years, Grace smiled small, knowing, dangerous. Do you know what reporters are saying? Harper Steele's voice thundered through the glass office. She stood in front of Ethan's desk, eyes blazing, a tablet shaking in her manicured hand. They're calling you heartless. They're calling me a homewrecker. Ethan Morgan didn't look up. He was staring at the city skyline, jaw tight, pretending her words didn't sting. The morning light poured through the windows, painting him in cold gold. It'll pass, he said flatly. They always move on to the next scandal. Harper threw the tablet across the room. It cracked against the floor. You divorced a pregnant, disabled woman in public. Ethan. That's not a scandal, that's suicide. Behind her, Victoria Morgan, Ethan's elegant but ruthless mother, stepped out of the elevator, pearls gleaming as usual. Watch your tone, Harper, she warned. Grace was pitiful long before the dinner. My son simply did what had to be done. Ethan turned finally, eyes tired but defiant. Mother's right. Grace was holding me back. Helios needs strength, not sympathy. Harper scoffed. Strength? You mean greed? At the far end of the office, Mark Benson, Ethan's quiet but loyal associate, looked up from his laptop. Sir, we've got another problem, he said nervously. Grace's father's estate has been reactivated. There's movement in the Morgan Trust account. Ethan frowned. That's impossible. Her father's been dead for years. There's nothing left to reactivate. Mark hesitated. Unless she found something. The words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Harper crossed her arms, smirking through her anger. Maybe your little saint wasn't as helpless as you thought. Victoria rolled her eyes. She's pregnant, Harper. A child doesn't make her powerful. Harper walked to the window, looking out over the glittering skyline. No, but a motive does. She'll fight now for that baby. Ethan slammed his fist on the desk, startling everyone. Enough! Grace doesn't have the guts to fight me. She's weak, always was. Mark exchanged a quick, uneasy glance with Harper. The door suddenly opened. Grace appeared. Her wheelchair glided silently over the marble floor, her hands steady on the rims. The morning light framed her face, soft but unyielding. For a brief second, even Harper's confidence cracked. Grace? Ethan stammered. You shouldn't be here. She looked at him, not with anger, but with eerie calm. Relax, she said. I came to congratulate you on your new life. Harper smirked. How thoughtful. Grace's eyes slid to the desk, where a folder labeled Helios Merger, $950M, sat in plain view. I see your priorities haven't changed. Ethan snatched the file off the table, flustered. You have no business. Grace cut in softly. I had plenty of business here once. You just never noticed. Then she leaned closer, her voice a whisper. Don't mistake my silence for surrender, Ethan. It's just timing. She turned her wheelchair toward the door and left as quietly as she had entered. The air she left behind felt heavy, like a fuse burning towards something no one could stop. Because when timing meets the truth, even the mighty forget how to stand. The sound of laughter echoed through the upscale cafe, but it wasn't joyful, it was cruel. She came in a wheelchair, honey. A wheelchair, whispered Clara Jennings, one of the city's notorious gossip columnists, her voice dripping with mockery. And get this, she's pregnant. Can you imagine the headlines? Across from her, Harper Steele stirred her cappuccino with a silver spoon, pretending to look bored but secretly enjoying every word. Beside her sat Victoria Morgan, perfectly composed, as if humiliation were an art form. Let the world see her pity party, Victoria said coolly. My son's future doesn't involve charity cases. Harper smirked. Don't worry, Victoria. I've already spoken to the press. By tomorrow, everyone will believe Grace married for money and trapped Ethan with that baby. Clara's eyes widened. That's harsh. Harper's smile sharpened. So was pretending to love a man she couldn't even walk beside. The laughter that followed was low and poisonous. At a nearby table, Lily Parker Grace's loyal friend froze mid-sip. Her eyes flicked to her phone screen, recording every word. Her heart pounded. She knew what this meant. They weren't just trying to destroy Grace's marriage, they were trying to erase her. She texted quickly. Gee, we have a problem. Across town, in a small apartment overlooking the river, Grace Morgan sat in silence. The television played softly in the background, broadcasting the headline she had dreaded. Pregnant ex-wife of CEO Ethan Morgan greedy or desperate. Her hands trembled as she muted the sound. The news anchor's smiles felt like knives. Her wheelchair faced the window, the faint glow of the skyline reflecting in her eyes. She could almost hear Harper's laughter echoing through the glass. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she rested a hand on her belly. They can mock me, she whispered, but they won't touch you. The phone buzzed. A message from Lily appeared on the screen. They're planning a smear campaign. I have recordings. Grace exhaled deeply, her trembling replaced by calm. So, the war begins, she murmured. She rolled to her desk. The lamp's light glowed on an old photograph. Her late father standing in front of the Helios logo, smiling proudly. In her memory, his voice was firm and gentle. Never fight with rage, Grace. Fight with reason, it lasts longer. Her eyes hardened. Then I'll reason them out of everything they think they own. The clock ticked softly as she opened a dusty folder labeled Trust and Estate Confidential. Inside were papers she had never dared to read before. But now, she turned each page like a soldier loading a weapon. Down below, thunder rumbled over the city, distant but building. Because storms don't warn before they strike, they just remind the arrogant that rain falls on everyone. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to do it now. Every click, every share, every comment helps us keep telling stories that give strength to women and children who've been broken, forgotten, or silenced. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting a channel, you're standing beside survivors, saying their stories matter. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss a story that could change a life. And in the comments, tell us where are you watching from and what part of this story spoke to your heart. Grace, you need to see this. Now. Lily Parker's urgent voice cut through the late-night silence. The apartment lights flickered as thunder rolled outside. Grace spun her wheelchair from the desk toward the door, her eyes narrowing. Lily burst in, drenched from the rain, clutching a soaked brown envelope to her chest. What happened? Grace asked, alarmed. Lily locked the door behind her, breathless. I went to your father's old attorney's office. They were cleaning out the archives, and I found this. It's from him. She laid the envelope on the desk. The seal bore her late father's initials, W.M. Grace froze. Her fingers hesitated before tearing it open. Inside were several faded papers and a flash drive wrapped in tissue. Lily leaned closer. It's dated 2 months before he passed. Grace unfolded the first page. Her father's handwriting stared back at her. To my daughter Grace, if you're reading this, then you've been wronged. What you don't know about Helios will change everything. Her heart pounded. He knew, she whispered. He knew Ethan would betray me. Lily connected the flash drive to Grace's laptop. The screen blinked, revealing folders labeled trust clauses, ownership transfer, confidential memos. One document opened automatically, a signed amendment with her father's signature. In the event of my death, Grace Morgan becomes the controlling shareholder of Helios Technologies, holding 60% equity through the Morgan Family Trust. Lily gasped. Grace, this means the company is yours. Grace stared at the screen, her mind racing. Her husband had divorced her, mocked her, called her weak, yet all along, she had owned everything he thought was his. Her voice trembled. He used my signature after my surgery. He stole my documents. But he never touched this file. She leaned back in her chair, her eyes glassy. For the first time in months, she let herself breathe. The weight of humiliation, gossip, and betrayal began to feel smaller. My father left me the weapon, she said softly. I just never knew how to use it. Lily smiled through tears. Then use it now. Make them remember who you are. Grace nodded slowly. Not yet. I need proof and witnesses. When I move, it'll be public. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room. Grace's shadow stretched across the blade. The wall still seated, but powerful. She reached for her father's photo on the shelf, tracing his name. You always said patience is a form of strength, she whispered. I understand now. Lily placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. You're not alone anymore. Grace smiled faintly. No, but they are. The rain softened outside. The hum of the city returned. Then, a quiet ding echoed from her laptop. A new file had appeared on the drive, one she hadn't opened. Its title glowed faintly in the dark. For Grace, read when you're ready. Grace's breath caught. Dad, what did you leave me? Because sometimes, the dead don't stay silent, they whisper blueprints for revenge. Grace, they'll destroy you if you go alone. Lily Parker's voice trembled as she followed Grace down the hallway of the old Helios Archives building. The metal doors groaned open, revealing rows of dust-covered file cabinets and the faint smell of paper and time. Grace didn't slow down. Her wheelchair rolled forward with a steady hum. I won't be alone, she said. My father didn't build this empire by himself. I'll find the people who helped him. Lily held the flashlight higher. You mean the ones Ethan forced out? Grace nodded. Exactly. The ones who know what integrity looks like. The beam of light caught an old brass nameplate on a door. David Reynolds, Senior Counsel. Grace's breath caught. He was my father's lawyer before Ethan took over. She pushed the door open. Inside, the office looked frozen in time, papers scattered, books leaning, a photo of her father shaking hands with a young David. A soft voice came from the shadows. You took long enough. Lily jumped. Grace's eyes widened. From the corner stepped David Reynolds, older now, gray at the temples, still carrying that calm authority she remembered from childhood. Mr. Reynolds? She whispered. He smiled faintly. Your father? Told me you'd come one day. I just didn't expect it to be after everything burned. Grace's voice cracked. He left me a letter. And a file. David gestured to a chair. Then you already know he hid your inheritance inside the Morgan Trust. But there's more. Your father had a backup plan for betrayal. A plan named Project Phoenix. Lily leaned forward. What's that? David opened a drawer and pulled out a thin folder marked Phoenix Clause. It's an investment clause your father filed with the SEC. If Helios was ever mismanaged or corrupted, ownership would revert to you automatically, once proof of fraud was presented. Grace stared at the document, disbelief flooding her face. You mean, the company would legally fall back to me? David nodded. Yes, but you'll need hard evidence. Ethan covered his tracks well. Grace's mind spun. Then we find it. Every forged signature, every stolen cent. David smiled approvingly. I can get you access to the audit trail. But you'll need someone who understands numbers, like bloodlines. Lily's eyes brightened. I know someone, Noah Jameson, my old friend from the finance division. He used to work under Ethan before he quit in protest. Grace turned her gaze toward the window where the rain had started again, the droplets sliding down the glass like tiny mirrors. Then tell him to pack his conscience, she said. We have work to do. David placed the Phoenix file into her hands. Your father would be proud, Grace. He always said you had his patience and your mother's fire. Grace looked down at the folder, her reflection trembling in the glossy cover. Patience built this company, she murmured. Fire will take it back. A lightning flash illuminated the room, and for a heartbeat, a shadow moved outside the frosted glass door. Lily froze. Grace! Someone's been following us. Grace didn't turn around. Then let them. Watch, she said calmly. They're about to see something worth fearing. Because the next move wouldn't be made in secret, it would be made under lights bright enough to blind. Close the blinds now. Lily Parker rushed across the small office, yanking down the shades as Grace Morgan's wheelchair slid into the room. The hum of the rain outside was drowned out by the whirring of computers, screens flickering with lines of numbers. At the center of it all sat Noah Jameson, early 30s, sharp eyes behind rectangular glasses, the kind of man who saw truth in numbers before anyone else did. His fingers moved across the keyboard like he was composing a symphony. They've been moving money for months, Noah said, eyes locked on the screen. Ethan hid millions through dummy shell companies all under the Helios banner, but he didn't expect anyone to dig this deep. Grace leaned forward. Can you prove it? He nodded. Every transaction leaves a fingerprint. I just found one that leads straight to an offshore account signed electronically by Harper Steel. Lily's eyes widened. His mistress helped him steal from his own company? Noah gave a grim smile. Love makes people stupid. Greed makes them reckless. The tension in the air was sharp enough to cut. Grace's hands tightened on her armrests. Then we'll use both. Suddenly, the power flickered. The screens blinked. Once, twice, and then a red warning flashed across every monitor. Unauthorized, access detected, connection terminated. Noah cursed under his breath. They found us. Someone's inside the network. Lily panicked. You said this system was untraceable. It was, Noah said, typing furiously. Unless someone fed them the location. Grace stayed calm, her voice cutting through the panic. Then they're watching. She turned toward the glass wall that looked out onto the street, rain streaming down its surface. Let them, they'll only see the surface. The light steadied again. The red alert vanished, replaced by a still image of the Helios logo. Noah exhaled, shaken. They just sent a warning. No data's lost yet, but if they hit again, we'll need to relocate. Grace nodded slowly. Good. Then we move tonight. She glanced at the folder on her lap, Project Phoenix. Her father's handwriting was still crisp across the top. My father wrote this plan for corruption, she murmured. Maybe he always knew it would come from inside his own walls. Noah looked at her curiously. You really think he predicted this? She smiled faintly. He didn't predict it. He prepared me for it. The words settled in the room like quiet thunder. Lily touched her shoulder. Grace, you're fighting $1 billion machine. Once you expose them, there's no going back. Grace's gaze hardened. I'm not going back. I'm going through. Outside, lightning illuminated the skyline, reflecting off the wet pavement like fire on glass. Noah's computer pinged. He frowned. That's strange. Someone just sent a message through a private server. Grace turned toward the screen. It displayed a single line. I know who killed your father. The room fell silent. Because some secrets don't just ruin reputations, they rewrite bloodlines. Noah, trace it. Grace Morgan's voice cut through the storm of keystrokes as the mysterious message glowed on the screen. I know who killed your father. Noah's fingers flew across the keyboard, his reflection flashing in the blue light. It's coming from a private satellite relay. Whoever sent this knows exactly what they're doing. Lily Parker stood behind him, arms folded, trying to mask her fear. Grace, what if it's a trap? Grace's hands tightened on the arms of her wheelchair. Then we spring it first. The tension in the room was thick, humming between the screens and the rain pounding against the glass. After several long seconds, Noah's screen beeped. Got it! A blurred image appeared, a man in his 50s, sitting in a dimly lit office. His voice came through the speaker, low and rough. Grace Morgan, if you want the truth about your father's death, meet me at the old Helios construction site. Midnight. Alone. The call ended. Static. Lily spun toward Grace. You can't go there, it's abandoned, dangerous. Grace's expression didn't change. So is every lie they've built. Noah leaned back, rubbing his temples. If this is real, we need protection. Let me come with you. Grace looked at both of them. No. If it's genuine, they'll only talk if I come alone. My father's world was built on secrecy, whoever this is, they know that. The storm outside had grown stronger by the time Grace reached the deserted Helios construction site. The cold air bit at her skin as she rolled her chair across the cracked pavement. The sound of water dripping echoed through the unfinished steel beams. She stopped under a half-built roof where an old security light flickered weakly. You wanted me here, she said into the darkness. So talk. A figure stepped out from the shadows, Elias Hart, her father's former chief of security, the man she hadn't seen since the funeral. His face was older, roughened by guilt. Grace, he said softly, I failed him. Grace's breath caught. You were with him the night he died. He nodded. I was. But your father didn't just die from a heart attack. He was poisoned, slow, undetectable. It started weeks before that night. Her stomach turned. Poisoned? By who? Elias looked away, his voice shaking. He suspected someone was stealing from the company. He was going to confront them. That same week, Ethan and Harper convinced him to sign a joint investment document. Grace's heartbeat thundered in her ears. You're saying Ethan had him killed? Elias hesitated. He wasn't alone. Lightning flashed, illuminating his pale face. Your father trusted the wrong man in his boardroom, and the papers that killed him are still buried in the Helios vault. Before Grace could speak, a gunshot cracked through the night. Elias staggered back, blood blooming across his chest. Elias! She screamed, reaching for him, but his body collapsed beside the wheelchair. His hand trembled as he pointed toward the distance. Find the ledger. He went still. Grace looked around in horror. Somewhere beyond the beams, a shadow moved watching. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't just return, it comes armed. Noah, we're running out of time. Lily Parker's voice cracked as the elevator doors clanged shut behind them. The sound echoed through the underground levels of Helios Tower, where the company's private archives were kept. Dim emergency lights flickered, painting the walls in red. Grace Morgan, her hands trembling on her wheelchair rims, looked straight ahead. He killed Elias, she said quietly, her tone more controlled than her shaking fingers. That ledger proves it, and everything else. Noah, carrying a slimline laptop and a portable scanner, led the way through the corridor. The security logs show no guards down here after midnight, he said. We have 15 minutes before the system resets. Lily's flashlight cut across a silver-plated vault door. That's it, Helios confidential records. Noah's fingers flew across the keypad on the wall. Encrypted. Ethan thought he buried the past in a password. He smirked faintly. He forgot I wrote the system. With a hiss, the vault door unlocked and swung open. The light revealed rows of metal drawers, sealed envelopes, and data drives marked with Helios logos. Grace wheeled herself inside, scanning the rows until her eyes landed on one drawer labeled Legacy Accounts. There! Lily pulled it open. Inside lay a single black leather ledger, heavy, old-fashioned, and embossed with a faint gold M. She handed it to Grace. Grace's pulse quickened as she flipped the first page. Her father's handwriting sprawled across the paper, meticulous, angry, determined. If this book is found, then the company I built has been corrupted. The men responsible are the ones I trusted most. The next pages listed account numbers, offshore transfers, and forged signatures. Ethan's, Harper's, and Victoria's. Lily gasped. Oh my God. He left names, dates, everything. Noah scanned the pages quickly. This is enough to take them all down. But before Grace could speak, the lights suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the room. A low mechanical hum began to rise, the vault's security system rebooting. Someone's triggered the lockdown? Noah hissed. We've got 90 seconds before it seals. Lily grabbed the ledger, clutching it to her chest. Grace, we have to move. Grace's voice was steady, cold. Go. Get it out. I'll stall them. No way, Lily protested. I'm not leaving you. Do it, Grace snapped, her eyes fierce in the dim red glow. If they catch me, they get nothing. But if that book leaves this building, Ethan's empire burns. Lily hesitated, then ran. Noah followed, the scanner beeping as he downloaded the last files. Grace turned toward the door, her silhouette framed by the flashing red lights. The hum grew louder. She could almost hear Ethan's voice in her memory. You're nothing without me, she whispered to the empty room. Then watch what nothing can do. A metallic clank echoed as the vault began to seal. Grace reached for her father's photo tucked inside her coat pocket, whispering, This time, I'll finish what you started. Then, a shadow appeared on the wall, tall, moving slowly toward her. Because the man who destroyed her life had just walked back into the dark, and he wasn't alone. Music thundered through the ballroom as Ethan Morgan raised his glass beneath a chandelier of diamonds and light. Cameras flashed, the air shimmered with wealth and arrogance. To new beginnings, he declared, voice smooth and confident. To Helios Technologies, and to the $950 million merger that will redefine power. Applause erupted. Beside him, Harper Steele, the mistress, gleamed in a scarlet gown that caught every spotlight. She leaned in, smiling at reporters. To the future, she added, her voice sweet poison. Victoria Morgan, Ethan's mother, sat nearby, wearing pride like a crown. Our family's empire, she whispered to a guest, is untouchable. But as the applause faded, the ballroom doors opened. The crowd turned. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Grace Morgan appeared at the top of the staircase. She wore a long black gown, simple yet commanding. Her wheelchair glided down the ramp beside the stairs, guided by the soft light of the chandeliers. In her lap rested a slim black folder, the ledger. A murmur rippled through the guests. Is that her? The wife? The one he divorced? Harper's smile faltered. What is she doing here? She hissed. Ethan froze, his practiced grin cracking for the first time all evening. Grace stopped halfway across the marble floor. Her calm presence silenced the room. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, her voice carrying easily. I just came to congratulate my husband on his new beginning. Gasps fluttered like paper through the crowd. Cameras turned. Ethan forced a smile. Grace, this isn't the time or place. On the contrary, she replied, eyes sharp. It's the perfect time and the right place. Harper stepped forward, feigning charm. Grace, honey, this is a celebration, not a courtroom. Grace's tone never changed. Funny you should say that, because the last time we were in a room like this, my husband handed me divorce papers. Tonight, I brought something of my own. She lifted the black folder, and the crowd leaned forward. Ethan's face paled. You don't know what you're doing. Oh, I do, Grace said quietly. You built your empire on my father's company and on forged documents. You signed his name after he was dead. Whispers spread like wildfire. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. Harper's glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble. Ethan's mask shattered. That's a lie. Grace's gaze didn't waver. Then prove it, because I have the ledger and every signature you thought you buried. Reporters surged forward. The flashes turned relentless. Grace turned to the crowd, her voice steady. This merger was built on stolen money. And tonight, I'm here to make something clear. The deal ends now. Ethan lunged toward her, fury twisting his face. But David Reynolds, her late father's lawyer, stepped out from the side entrance, holding up a court order. By order of the SEC, he said calmly, all Helios transactions are frozen pending investigation. The ballroom exploded in noise, panic, disbelief, and chaos. Grace met Ethan's eyes one last time. You took everything from me, she said softly. Now I'm just taking back what was already mine. The lights flickered. The giant LED screen behind the stage suddenly glowed red with a single line. Helios fraud files. Uploading 12% complete. Because the truth wasn't just about to surface, it was about to go viral. Do something, Ethan. Stop her. Harper Steele's voice cracked like shattered glass as she slammed the ballroom door behind them. The crowd's shouts still echoed from the hall, reporters demanding statements, cameras flashing, investors screaming. Inside the private lounge, chaos reigned. Victoria Morgan paced like a caged animal, her pearl necklace trembling in her fingers. "This is a nightmare," she hissed. "Everything we built gone because of her." Ethan's tie was undone, his shirt damp with sweat. "It's not over," he snapped, running a hand through his hair. "She's bluffing. That ledger could be fake." Harper grabbed his arm. "Fake? You saw her face, Ethan. She's got proof, and now the SEC is here. If those files upload, we're finished." Victoria turned, eyes blazing. "You told me you deleted everything." "I did," Ethan shouted. "Every account, every forged signature." He slammed his fist into the wall. "She wasn't supposed to find the originals." A voice came from the corner. Carl Whitman, one of Helios's senior investors, had been standing silently by the bar, drink untouched. His tone was cold. "You've been lying to us, Ethan. You said the merger funds were clean." Ethan's head snapped up. "Carl, listen to me." Carl cut him off. "No, you listen. Half the board just resigned. The other half wants your head." Victoria tried to intervene, but Carl's glare stopped her cold. "Mrs. Morgan, I respected your husband, but your son just doomed this company." He turned and walked out without another word. The door slammed, leaving a ringing silence. Harper sank onto the sofa, shaking. "You said she'd never fight back, that she was weak." Ethan's jaw clenched. "She is weak." Harper looked at him, her voice trembling. "Then why does she look stronger than both of us combined?" Victoria stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Listen to me, Ethan. Grace may have proof, but she doesn't have power, not yet. If we can intercept those uploads and discredit her first, we can still survive." Harper frowned. "How?" Victoria's eyes glinted. "We leak a news story that she faked the pregnancy, that she's mentally unstable, obsessed with revenge. If the media turns on her, the board will too." Ethan hesitated. "You want me to destroy her reputation again?" His mother's smile was cold. "It worked before." Harper glanced at him. "And what about me, Ethan? When this blows up, I go down with you." He stared at her, silent. For the first time, Harper realized there was no we left. Before anyone could speak again, the door burst open. Noah Jameson stood there, drenched from the rain, holding a small flash drive between two fingers. "You're too late," he said, voice calm but lethal. "The uploads are complete. Every lie, every theft, it's all public." Ethan's face went white. "What did you just say?" Noah's expression didn't change. "The world knows what you did to her and to her father. Because by the time truth reaches daylight, it doesn't knock. It breaks the door down. Play it." The command came from Grace Morgan, her voice calm but cutting through the chaos like glass. The ballroom had not recovered from the earlier explosion of scandal. Reporters still crowded near the stage, flashes blinding every second. Executives whispered, lawyers argued, and somewhere in the back, a champagne glass fell and shattered. At the center of it all, Grace sat in her wheelchair before the microphone, hands folded over the black folder. To her right stood Noah Jameson, her quiet but fiercely loyal tech ally. To her left, David Reynolds, her late father's lawyer, ready with documents and a thumb drive. The screen behind them flickered, and a voice began to play. "Transfer it under my name. No one will question it. She doesn't even know what she signed." Ethan's voice, sharp, cruel, recorded clearly. A gasp rippled across the hall. Cameras turned instantly toward Ethan Morgan, who stood frozen near the back, surrounded by his board and Harper Steele, his mistress. "Stop that recording!" Ethan shouted. "That's illegal." Grace's tone didn't waver. "So was forging my father's signature." Another clip played. Harper's voice laughed faintly. "She'll be too busy in therapy to notice the missing funds." It's almost poetic, isn't it? The crowd erupted, shock, disgust, whispers of, "Did she really say that? And that's his wife's inheritance." Harper stepped back, face pale. "That was taken out of context." Grace tilted her head slightly. "Funny. I don't hear any context that saves you." The room fell silent. Only the sound of the audio continued. Ethan and Harper discussing the hidden accounts, mocking Grace's disability, and planning to move her father's company into Ethan's sole ownership. By the time the clip ended, the silence was suffocating. Ethan's father, Mr. Morgan Sr., finally spoke from the front row. "Is this true, Ethan?" Ethan stammered, sweating. "Dad, it's not, it's—" His father's disappointment cut through him like steel. "You destroyed this family's name." Grace took a deep breath. For a moment, her calm cracked not from weakness, but from release. "You humiliated me when I was at my lowest," she said softly. "You told everyone I was useless. But you forgot something, Ethan. I was raised to fight fair and to finish what my father started." The applause began slowly, one investor, then another. Within seconds, it grew into a roar. Harper turned to Ethan in panic. "We have to leave!" But security had already arrived. Two agents stepped forward with federal badges. "Ethan Morgan, Harper Steele, you're under investigation for fraud, forgery, and corporate theft." Cameras surged again. Reporters shouted questions. Grace sat motionless, her eyes wet but unyielding. Ethan turned one last time, shouting across the hall, "You'll regret this." Grace met his glare with a calm smile. "I already did. Once." Because she knew the arrest was only the beginning, the final reckoning was yet to come. "Get those cameras out of my face!" Ethan roared as the officers pushed him through the hotel lobby. Outside the ballroom, chaos swallowed everything. Sirens wailed, reporters swarmed, and flashes from dozens of cameras turned the night into lightning. Ethan's once immaculate tuxedo was torn, his cufflinks missing. Beside him, Harper Steele sobbed, mascara streaking down her face as she clung to her purse like a lifeline. "This isn't happening," Harper whimpered. "You said no one would ever find the files." Ethan jerked his arm away from the officers, glaring at her. "Shut up, Harper. You were supposed to delete the backups. Don't you dare blame me," she screamed. "You're the one who told me to do it." Their fight was drowned out by the media frenzy. Behind the chaos stood Noah Jameson, calm and watchful, his camera phone recording everything. "Truth has a funny way of showing up when you least expect it," he murmured to the officers beside him. Inside the ballroom, Grace Morgan watched the scene unfold through the glass doors. Her reflection in the window looked foreign. The same woman who'd once been humiliated at that very spot now sat poised, her calm more powerful than Ethan's former arrogance. Lily Parker, standing beside her, whispered, "You did it, Grace. They're finished." Grace's eyes softened. "No, Lily, we did it. My father's legacy didn't die in vain." David Reynolds, ever the steady presence, stepped forward with a small envelope. "The board just voted, Grace. They've reinstated you as chair of Helios Holdings, effective immediately." Grace stared at the papers inside the company name her father built, signed back into her hands. Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away. "He said I was dead weight," she whispered. "But this company, it always had my name written in its bones." As the applause began from inside the ballroom, hesitant at first, then growing louder, Grace took a long breath. She remembered every insult, every cruel smirk, every night she'd cried alone, wondering if she'd ever stand tall again. Now she didn't have to stand at all. Her strength was everywhere in the truth, in the justice, in the people who never stopped believing in her. Outside, the officers shoved Ethan toward a black car marked Federal Investigation Bureau. His mother's screams echoed as the doors slammed. Harper tried to run, but reporters blocked her path, microphones stabbing forward. "Did you steal from your husband's company?" one shouted. "Were you involved in the forgery?" another barked. Harper froze, her eyes darting wildly. Then, in a moment of self-preservation, she shouted back, "It was all Ethan. He made me do it." The crowd gasped. Inside, Grace whispered to herself, "They always turn on each other when the truth comes out." Noah turned toward her. "What now?" Grace looked past the chaos to the night sky beyond the windows. "Now," she said softly, "we rebuild the right way." Because the night wasn't over yet, and someone unexpected was still watching from the shadows. Flash bulbs exploded like fireworks as Grace Morgan rolled onto the stage of the Helios Tower Auditorium. The air was thick with tension, journalists elbowed for space, cameras locked onto her, and the sound of whispered questions filled the air. At the podium, a banner read, "Helios Holdings Official Statement." Behind Grace stood Noah Jameson, David Reynolds, and Detective Laura Pierce, the lead investigator overseeing the corporate fraud case. Their presence said everything. This was not just a company announcement. It was Judgment Day. Grace adjusted the microphone, her movements calm and deliberate. The hall fell silent. "Good evening," she began softly. "You all know my name. What you don't know is what it cost me to sit here today." Her voice carried across the packed room, measured, steady, almost too calm for the storm behind it. She continued, "Years ago, I was told I was nothing. I was told I wasn't strong enough, smart enough, or useful enough to build anything on my own. My husband, Ethan Morgan, made sure everyone believed that lie." A murmur ran through the reporters. She let the silence linger, tactical silence, long enough for the cameras to lean closer. "But truth," she said, "has a strange way of surviving lies, especially when it's written in ink." She opened the black ledger on the podium. Pages fluttered like wings as she held up the evidence, her late father's signature, the forged accounts, the false contracts Ethan had built his empire on. "This book," she said, voice rising now, "is my father's voice from beyond the grave. The empire you thought was built by Ethan Morgan was stolen from a dying man and his disabled daughter." Gasps echoed. Cameras flashed like lightning. Grace lowered her gaze, emotion tightening her throat. "I was in a hospital bed when my husband forged those signatures. I woke up unable to walk, but it wasn't the accident that paralyzed me. It was betrayal." Reporters murmured again, some visibly emotional. Detective Pierce stepped forward and spoke into her mic. "For those asking, Mr. Ethan Morgan has been charged with 6 counts of corporate fraud, embezzlement, and falsifying financial documents. Harper Steele is under investigation for aiding and abetting." Applause broke out across the room, not loud but powerful, the kind that grows when truth finally lands. Grace smiled faintly, though her eyes glistened. "I don't celebrate their downfall," she said. "I celebrate justice. Because every woman told she's too broken to rebuild, I want her to know she can." The cameras zoomed in on her face as she closed the ledger. "I may sit in a wheelchair," she said softly, "but I stand taller than I ever did beside him." The crowd rose to their feet. For the first time, Grace wasn't a victim, she was the headline. As the press conference ended, a security guard leaned in to whisper something to Detective Pierce. Her face stiffened. Grace turned. "What is it?" The detective hesitated. "We just received word. Ethan escaped custody during transport." Grace froze, her hands tightening on the armrests. The room's applause faltered into murmurs. Because the man who once broke her body wasn't done trying to break her spirit. Rain lashed against the windows of the Morgan estate as the front doors burst open. Ethan Morgan, drenched and wild-eyed, staggered into the marble foyer. His tuxedo jacket was torn, his cuffs stained, his expression half mad. The flashing red of police sirens pulsed across the walls like a warning heartbeat. "Grace!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the mansion that once belonged to her father. "Where are you?" His words were more plea than command. From the far end of the hall, the soft hum of wheels broke the silence. Grace Morgan appeared, calm as ever, her black dress glinting faintly in the dim light. Behind her stood Noah Jameson, protective and firm, and Detective Laura Pierce, weapon drawn but lowered, ready. Grace stopped at the base of the grand staircase, the same one she once climbed every morning before the accident that changed her life. Her eyes met his, steady and unafraid. "You shouldn't be here, Ethan," she said quietly. He took a step forward, shaking. "They turned me into a criminal. You did this to me." "No," Grace replied, her tone like steel. "You did this to yourself the day you signed my father's name." Ethan's laugh was bitter, broken. "I loved you, Grace. I built everything for us." She tilted her head slightly. "You built it on lies. You built it over me." He flinched at the words. "I made mistakes." "Mistakes?" Her voice rose, calm breaking for the first time. "You left me in a hospital bed, unable to walk, while you took my father's company and his name. You called me dead weight. Tell me, Ethan, how much did my worth weigh to you then?" The silence that followed was thunderous. Ethan's breathing grew ragged. "I just wanted power. I thought it would make me someone." Grace's gaze softened for a moment, pity, not forgiveness. "Power doesn't make you someone. It shows who you already are." Detective Pierce stepped closer. "Mr. Morgan, surrender now. There's nowhere left to run." But Ethan ignored her. He stared at Grace, eyes red. "You think you've won?" he whispered. "You think they'll respect a cripple in charge?" Grace's expression didn't change. "They already do." Noah placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. She nodded once. "Detective, take him." Pierce moved forward, but Ethan suddenly lunged toward Grace. The move was desperate, wild, a final burst of broken pride. Noah blocked him instantly, forcing him back as Pierce restrained him. Ethan struggled, screaming her name as he was dragged toward the door. "You ruined me!" Grace exhaled slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, Ethan. You ruined yourself. I just stopped letting you ruin me too." The officers led him out into the storm. His voice faded into the night. For a long moment, Grace sat in silence, the rain tapping gently against the windows. The empire her father built was hers again, not through vengeance, but through truth. Then, her phone buzzed. A single message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. "You may have won this war, Grace." But Helios wasn't the only thing he sold. Her eyes lifted slowly toward the rain-smeared glass, where the city lights flickered like distant sparks. Because some battles end in courtrooms but others begin in shadows. Hello, family. Thank you for watching till the end. If this story touched your heart about truth, courage, and standing tall even when you can't walk, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Because every quiet woman the world once called broken deserves to rise again.